What if the Montreal Canadiens, under the intense glare of the NHL trade deadline spotlight, pulled off the most brilliant move by doing absolutely nothing at all? That's the masterclass in restraint and long-term vision that general manager Kent Hughes just executed, defying a frenzied narrative of deadline hyperactivity that infects sports franchises every March. While the media, fueled by journalists, TV analysts, and impatient fans, painted the retention of Patrik Laine as a failure, a deeper look reveals a calculated triumph, one that may stand as the most tactically sound decision the Habs have made in the past 5 years. With Laine's $8.7 million contract haunting the salary cap and his on-ice presence limited to just 5 games this season, the pressure to do something was immense. Yet, Hughes' refusal to cave to that pressure, as dissected by the hockey writers, showcases a rare blend of patience and strategic foresight in a league where impulsive moves often destroy dynasties faster than any injury ever could. Let's slice into the anatomy of this silent victory with surgical precision. On the surface, keeping Laine, a former second overall draft pick turned cap albatross, feels like a glaring misstep for a storied franchise like Montreal. The narrative peddled by the North American media was straightforward. Hughes needed to wash his hands of this disaster, to cleanse a locker room by shipping Laine to the Los Angeles Kings, Utah Mammoth, or any team willing to absorb the burden. Fans, skimming headlines, saw in action as incompetence, a failure to address a 6'5" ghost haunting the payroll of Canada's most traditional hockey team. But in the cutthroat chess game of NHL corporate strategy, you don't remove a problem without first calculating the cost of the courier. Hughes understood this, and his decision to stand pat wasn't surrender. It was a calculated checkmate. To grasp the dark genius of Montreal's inertia, you must first understand the predatory mathematics of the NHL trade market. The salary cap isn't just a spending limit. It's a weapon of extortion. When the other 31 franchises see a GM like Hughes suffocating under a nearly $9 million contract for a player who barely plays, they don't offer help, they offer loan sharking. To offload Laine at the deadline, Montreal wouldn't have simply handed him over. The unwritten rules of the game demand a sweetener, a term for the additional cost of convincing another team to take your trash. Rival GMs sat at the table and named their price. We'll take Laine off your hands, and we'll even let you retain 50% of his salary. But in return for our generosity, you'll need to include a first-round draft pick next year, or surrender an elite prospect like Lane Hutson or David Reinbacher. This isn't a trade, it's a shakedown, and Hughes refused to be the victim. This is where tactical brilliance separates emotional executives from long-term architects. A weaker GM, buckling under the weight of critical articles and booing fans, would have paid the ransom. They would have sacrificed a cornerstone of the future for the fleeting relief of a headline reading. Montreal finally dumps Patrik Laine. They would have amputated a healthy leg to treat an ingrown toenail. But Hughes delivered a masterclass in cold-blooded restraint. He looked at the calculator, glanced at the calendar, and asked a question the media overlooked. Why pay an extortion fee for a problem with an expiration date? Laine's contract isn't a permanent anchor. It ends on July 1st. When the regular season concludes and the final playoff buzzer sounds, his $8.7 million vanishes from the books as he becomes an unrestricted free agent UFA. No draft picks lost, no prospects traded, no foundation to rebuild compromised. The dust settles, the payroll clears, and Montreal emerges unscathed. The media's obsession with immediate cap relief in March paints it as a life-or-death issue. But that urgency only holds the Canadiens were one player away from a Stanley Cup. Had Calgary not blocked Zach Whitecloud's availability, and had Montreal desperately needed cap space for a game-changing defenseman to bolster a playoff run right now, retaining Laine might have been a mistake. But the reality is stark. The Habs' true championship window isn't open yet. They're not winning the conference this year. They're assembling the chessboard for 2027. In that context, freeing up Laine space now would be a futile exercise. Why have cap room in March when the impact players worth signing won't hit free agency until July? Hughes chose to weather the storm of impatient fan outrage, keep an invisible player on the roster until the season's end, and protect the franchise's war chest of the battles that truly matter. Let's break down the 4 unspoken tactical reasons why this non-move stands as the best operation Montreal could have executed. First, the performance evaluation vacuum. Laine has played just 5 games this season. You can't sell a depreciated asset without letting the buyer take a test drive. Other teams wanted Montreal to bear the full risk of the transaction, unsure if Laine's wrist, knee, or mental state could withstand playoff intensity. Hughes recognized he was negotiating with a product lacking a warranty in a market full of discerning customers. Selling at rock bottom is the cardinal sin of both financial and sports markets, and he refused to commit it. Second, the unrelenting protection of the young core. The Canadiens' project revolved around the trio of Nick Suzuki, Cole Caulfield, and Juraj Slavkovsky, with the imminent arrival of Russian phenom Ivan Demidov poised to elevate them further. To sustain the salary cap for future extensions, when these players demand contract of $8, $10, or even $12 million annually, Montreal needs a farm system stocked with cheap rookie contract talent. If Hughes had surrendered a draft pick or prospect just to offload Laine, he'd be stealing food from the future's table to mop the present's floor. Third, the fallacy of induced urgency. Look at the chaos of the past few days and hours across the league. Pressure breeds panic, and panic breeds catastrophe. The Chicago Bulls in basketball gutted their future by hiding injuries during trades. The Toronto Maple Leafs, whose media now laments Radko Gudas injuring Austin Matthews' knee without retaliation, traded away forward Nikita Grabenkin and the physical presence that might have deterred such aggression, all to satisfy the urgency of a flashy deadline deal last week. When you act on impulse to appease editorial lines or social media noise, you snap the spine of your long-term planning. Hughes sidestepped that trap entirely. Fourth, and perhaps the most brilliant aspect of this corporate inertia, the rejection of inherited baggage. Laine's contract wasn't a long-term vision crafted by the current regime. It was a calculated risk that didn't pay off. By locking Laine into the roster until expiration, Hughes sent a crystal-clear message to the other 31 GMs in the NHL. We're not anyone's bailout bank, and we don't pay cowardice taxes. If a deal doesn't benefit us, we'll eat the loss until the last day. But you won't extort our future. The NHL is a brutal brotherhood of negotiators constantly testing each other's resolve. Had Hughes capitulated, handing over elite assets to clear Laine's deal, he'd have painted a target on his back. Next year, when a real trade was needed, rivals would know they could squeeze him until he overpaid. Retaining Laine was a diplomatic power play, the corporate equivalent of slamming a fist on the poker table and saying, "I'll see your bluff," knowing the house's cards were marked. Now, let's map out the strategic landscape unfolding in the coming months. The season ends. The playoffs play out. July 1st arrives. Laine's contract expires and fades into oblivion. The Montreal Canadiens enter free agency with a pristine salary cap, boasting financial flexibility that will be the envy of 90% of the league. They'll have the funds to pursue top-tier defensemen or elite forwards in their physical prime. Without owing favors to anyone, they preserved every first and second-round draft pick. They've sacrificed not a single prospect. This isn't a loss. It's a setup for the most promising summer in a decade, with the coffers locked and the key firmly in Hughes' pocket. What the hockey writers and the broader media must grasp is that, whether in corporate baseball or hockey spreadsheets, victory isn't measured by how often your name dominates deadline headlines. It's measured by your ability to shield your organization's assets from the irrational swings of the short-term market. Hughes wasn't a loser for failing to trade Patrik Laine. He was a surgeon who refused to operate with a dull scalpel the market handed him. He kept the wound intained, waited out the infection's expiration date, and now guides a franchise toward a future unmarred by hasty concessions. With the dust settled and no papers signed, the tactical audit of this non-move is complete, and the verdict is total absolution for strategic inertia. The question now turns to the path ahead. With the cap space set to overflow in July as Laine's toxic contract dissolves, how would you steer this ship? Would you leverage this newfound financial war chest to inflate the free agent market, signing proven veterans to force open the championship window immediately? Or would you hoard this margin, using it to absorb bad contracts from desperate franchises during the summer, extracting hefty tolls and draft picks to further stockpile your prospect pool and dominate the league from the shadows? The boardroom awaits your ruling, and the future of the Canadiens hangs on the next calculated move. Drop your strategy in the comments, and let's debate the best way to wield this hard-earned flexibility. The Bell Center demands vision, and July's clean slate offers a canvas for greatness.